The PlayStation 5 is coming out very, very soon, and this would be a massive upgrade from the PS4 Pro and even the Xbox One X, so this would be Sony's true 4K 60 console and also the world's most powerful console. And here's all the latest leaks and rumors, everything we know at the moment in terms of the PlayStation 5. Lots of details that I want to cover in this video, so grab some snacks, some drinks, sit back, relax, and let's have a look. Okay, so here's the thing, unlike laptops or, smartphones, tablets, or pretty much anything in the tech industry, consoles do not get a yearly update. In fact, consoles get updated every 5 to 6 years or so. For example, the original PlayStation 1 came out in 1994, the PS2 came out in 2000, so 6 years later, then the PS3 came out in 2006, so again 6 years later, and then the PS4 came out in 2013, so 7 years later. So yeah, the PS5 should come out in 2019 or 2020. However, the console cycle release got disrupted by the release of the PS4 Pro in September 2016, which was a much more powerful version of the PS4, but still not powerful enough for it to be the next generation console. Now, the PS4 Pro can indeed play 4K games, but only very few of them are actually true 4K. So, for example, Last of Us Remastered is indeed true 4K 60, so that's impressive. Wipeout Remastered is also true 4K 60, and they look stunning, but these games were actually PS3 games in the first place. They were never even designed for the original PS4. And all the modern games that do render in 4K, they're actually either Quad HD 30 or checkerboarded 4K, upscaled, and still 30 frames per second. But what Sony aims to do with the PS5 is actually true native 4K at 60 frames per second, something that not even the Xbox One X can do at the moment. And I'll talk about the specs in a second, but first, when is the PS5 actually coming out? Well, like I said, 2019 or 2020. But then something very interesting actually happened about 3 weeks ago. So Sony has announced that it would not be attending E3 2019, which is very unexpected and also quite shocking because Sony has been attending E3 for literally the past 24 years. 24 years, and they haven't skipped a single year in 24 years, and they just randomly decided to do so in 2019. Now, this can mean two things. So one, either Sony has literally nothing to talk about and they're skipping E3 entirely because of that, or two, they have a lot to talk about, including the PS5, and they'll actually be doing a separate dedicated big PlayStation event just for that outside of E3. And here's the actual press statement that Sony has released in terms of this. As the industry evolves, Sony Interactive Entertainment continues to look for inventive opportunities to engage with the community. PlayStation fans mean the world to us, and we always want to innovate, think differently, and experiment with new ways to delight gamers. As a result, we have decided not to participate in E3 2019. We are exploring new and familiar ways to engage with our community in 2019, and we cannot wait to share our plans with you. So, Sony's definitely not canceling their community interaction in 2019 based on that statement. Reason why I would actually put my money on option number 2. Sony having a dedicated big event just to announce the PlayStation 5. Now, I don't really see this event happening anytime before September or Q4 2019, to be honest. So based on this, my prediction is either a late 2019 event with a PS5 announcement as well as the release ahead of the holiday season of 2019, or just a PS5 announcement and then possibly even a late 2020 release. Now, if this console would be, 4K 60, like a true 4K 60 console, which at the moment this is something that only the GTX 2080 can achieve in almost all games, well, it needs to have some insane specs. Now, take a look at the Xbox One X. It actually has similar performance to a Radeon RX 580 card, which is a mid-range graphics card, but that's still very impressive considering that the 580 is a 1080p Quad HD gaming card, while the Xbox One X can even do native 4K, albeit at 30 frames per second, but still. And now when it comes to the actual PS5 specs, all the leaks are pointing towards Sony using an 8-core AMD Ryzen desktop processor, as well as a custom-made AMD GPU either based on Vega architecture or even the upcoming Navy architecture. Now, Sony is actually working very closely with AMD on this. In fact, we've even had a report that AMD has actually built the entire Navy architecture with the PS5 in mind, and this is why they've actually had to delay the Vega architecture in the first place. Now, the PS4 Pro has 4.2 teraflops of performance, but then the Xbox One X has 6 teraflops. So what about a PS5? Well, it's actually rumored to have between 8 to 10 teraflops of performance, which I'll cover in a second, but Yeah, that's absolutely insane for a console. Now, just to give you guys an idea, a GTX 1080 Ti actually has over 10 teraflops of performance, and you can easily handle native 4K games at 30 frames per second on the highest settings, and in a lot of cases even at 60 frames per second and over. Now, on the other hand, an Xbox One X has 6 teraflops of performance, so yeah, almost half of the power of the 1080 Ti, and it can handle native 4K 30 games as well, thanks to how optimized the games are. In fact, Mark Cerny, the lead developer, the lead system architect actually for the PS4, said that he believes that in order for a console to hit native 4K 60, it needs about 8 teraflops or even more of performance. So yeah, a PS5 with 10 teraflops would be easily able to not just handle 4K 60, but also heavily improve the graphics with, more effects, high resolution textures, and basically take the overall graphics quality to a jump similar to the PS3 to the PS4. So we won't just be getting, high resolution and a higher frame rate, but also more realistic graphics as well. Now, the PS5 will definitely feature backwards compatibility. So this is something that's been talked a lot about. And since the PS4 and the PS4 Pro are already based on the x86-64 platform, and the fact that the AMD Ryzen processors are also based on the x86-64 architecture, the PS5 will also be based on this x86-64. So, all the games would automatically be backwards compatible to the PS5. So all PS4 games would work on a PS5, which is obviously awesome. So this not only means that you would be able to play all of your previous PS4 games on a PS5, but if developers decide to do so, they could easily release a patch that allows you to play native for a PS4 games in native 4K 60. So imagine playing God of War or even GTA 5 in that resolution and frame rate. That would be insane. And speaking of insane, something very interesting happened earlier this month. So Sony had an event in Tokyo where they showcased their upcoming Sony 8K TVs, so that was quite cool. And on those TVs, they obviously needed, some 8K content to show their 8K TVs. And since there was literally almost no 8K videos to showcase, they showed an 8K game. So Sony actually gave us a demo of Gran Turismo Sport running in 8K at 120 frames per second. This is insane, guys. This is absolutely insane. The PS4 Pro, for example, runs that game at 1800p in 60 frames per second, which is still very impressive, but native 4K at 60 frames per second for Gran Turismo would be an achievement. 120 frames per second in 8K is just unbelievable. So how is this even possible? Well, here's a few things that I want to mention. So first, this is a racing game. And racing games are actually the easiest 3D games to render, since you just need to render the car model and the most amount of detail. And since you're driving so fast, the track itself and the background doesn't need to be as detailed. So a lot of racing games even use 2D assets for the trees and crowd, sometimes on multiple layers and so on, and they actually rotate those based on perspective. So what I'm saying is that an 8K 120 frames per second racing game is much more achievable than, Red Dead Redemption 2 in 8K 120. But yeah, don't get me wrong, the PS5 would not support 8K gaming at 120 frames per second. That would be insane, of course, but by 2020, we would not have the tech required to build a $400 console that can do 8K 120. We can already do, by the way, 8K 120. You just need a lot of GPUs, a lot of 2080 Ti's, 2080s actually, but that's pretty much what you need. A lot of really powerful GPUs, and you can do it. But when it comes to doing this on a $400 console or whatever price the PS5 would be priced at, no, you cannot do that. Essentially, the PS5 would establish itself as a true native 4K console, especially since now more and more households are starting to get a hold of, 4K televisions. And then by the time the PS5 Pro releases, some households would even start having, 8K TVs. And then the PS5 Pro would offer 8K 30 games, or maybe even 8K 60 if it takes 3 to 4 years for Sony to release one. So yeah, don't get your hopes too high when it comes to, playing 8K games or anything crazy like that. So now that we know the specs and the performance, let's talk about the design. So we know that the PS5 development kits are already in the hands of developers, but Sony does actually not have a finalized design as of yet. So there was this very big leak actually about 2 weeks ago on this Russian website that showed us a possible design for the PS5. And we've actually made a PS5 concept based on just that. So here's the official ZONEofTECH PlayStation 5 concept based on that leak. Now, unfortunately, that leak was actually confirmed to be fake by Benjamin Gaskin. Apparently, it was actually a render, a really good one. But at least it was, a realistic vision as to how the PS5 could look like. I mean, the thing is, I've seen a lot of concepts of the PS5 which showed spheres or, crazy designs like that, which are cool, don't get me wrong. But let's be honest. those are not going to be the design of the PS5. So here's a more realistic look at how the PS5 could look like. Yeah, overall a very similar design to the PS4 with this two-tone look. The console itself should be bigger or at least thicker than even the PS4 Pro, depending on how much cooling Sony decides to add in this thing. But yeah, like I said, don't expect any crazy spherical designs or anything like that. And I just wanted to mention how far the ZONEofTECH concepts have come. So this was the old PS5 concept from back in February 2018. And this is the concept 9 months later. So yeah, I think we've come a long way. So definitely do subscribe and enable notifications if you're new to the channel for more and better concepts in the future. Now, of course, that if you want to achieve the best performance for a lower cost, not a sponsor, but the best option is actually a streaming service. So something that OnLive used to do in the past. If any of you remember that, thumbs up if you guys remember OnLive. And then Google is also working at the moment on something similar with Project Stream. And you can actually try Assassin's Creed Odyssey for free streamed. So that's quite interesting. You do get more latency than from, playing it directly on a console or PC, but you get to experience the same game in 1080p 30 frames per second, but it's at the highest possible settings, and things would get better in time. Latency would be lowered, and yeah, essentially what you need at the moment is a 25 megabit per second connection at least. And as the time goes by, the internet would be getting faster and faster, and especially with 5G just around the corner, 5G actually allows speeds of up to 10 gigabits per second on the go compared to 1 gigabit. That was for 4G. So yeah, this would allow for even 4K games at 60 frames per second to be streamed with almost no delay, and this is where something like Sony's upcoming PS5 portable console would come into play. Microsoft has even said that the next generation of Xbox consoles would actually be the last generation of physical consoles, and then afterwards they would be moving towards cloud gaming and streaming. And streaming does have a ton of advantages. So not only would you be able to play your game library on any device, like smartphone, tablet, console, computer, whatever, even a TV with a controller, but for example, if you're, watching Ninja play Fortnite on Twitch or something, you could just press a button to join in the same lobby and play it yourself from the exact same moment in the game. And that's really cool. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to the future. The only major downside that I can think of when it comes to streaming is that everything would be subscription based. You would have to pay Sony for access to their streaming services, and then you would also have to pay the developers for the games. I mean, it would be cool if you just paid for the streaming access and you would get access to all the PS5 games and PS4. That would be cool, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So you would either have to buy the games fully, or the games could be free, but they would come with a lot of in-app purchases in that case. But yeah, definitely let me know in the comments your thoughts on the PS5 and game streaming in general. Do you think that this is the future, or do you think that countries that are a bit underdeveloped when it comes to the actual internet speeds would be the ones losing all this? So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Also subscribe and notifications if you're new to the channel and you want to see more Leaks Rumors episodes and more interesting tech videos like this one. Definitely give this video a like if you have enjoyed it to let me know. And this has been pretty much it. I'm Daniel. Thank you all for making it until the end. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. ZONEofTECH signing out. Cheers.